Beverly.
And we are the Redmonds. We're coming back to you with our Space Part 2. I know we kind of changed up our shirts, and I have a little bit of bad news, people. This is our last episode with the polos.
And the t-shirts?
No, we're going to get some more t-shirts. But my wife said we got to retire the polos. So
I just want to wear some of my own clothes.
Right.
But we promise we will recirculate them. We'll bring the t-shirts and the polos back from time to time. We understand it's a lot of fun for you.
Right. Now, we've had some serious topics the past couple of weeks, and now we're back shifting gears to having a little bit more fun.
A little lighthearted,
and
yeah.
We decided to come back with a Space Part 2.
Yes.
Which we talked about space, meaning incorporating physical, personal, private space, spiritual space.
Yes.
And one of the biggest, obstacles of our space or incorporating space was our move to Seattle, Washington.
Yes.
So, and also remember, last time I didn't get a chance to read my excerpt.
You did not.
Right, so we're going to read.
We're going to do that today.
We're going to do that today. But why don't you start us off with our space and how we wound up in Seattle.
So I'm going to take you back a little bit in the Wayback Machine and do a rewind. If you have been watching, or even if you're new, it is important to know that Mark and I had commuted for a lot of time, or a lot of over a period of time during our marriage. We started out not only dating, he was in Chicago, I'm in Indianapolis during that time, and we continued that trend into our marriage. Finally, I get to Chicago and we're both headed in the right direction. We're both under one roof. I'm working in the suburbs at a school district doing well. Mark is working at City Colleges of Chicago at Malcolm X, doing well. And then an opportunity, seemingly out of the blue, arises, and I get an email that says, Beverly, would you apply for this position in Seattle? And immediately I'm like, ding, like, wow. To the ego, it's a boost. It's a real boost. Like, wow, I'm flattered. Seattle, we're almost out of the country, and they want me to come and apply. Amazing. But immediately I started to think, is this the right thing for us? We've already been
Listen, people, she's glossing over a lot of stuff. That's not how it really went down.
It's not?
No.
Yes, in my mind, that's how it went down.
In your mind?
Yes.
Okay. Well, in my mind, you get this opportunity, and we were making plans to get, we were getting ready to wrap up our careers. You in Elmhurst, I'm at City College. We're saying, okay, 6-7 more years, maybe 5. We're going to roll off into the sunset.
Yes.
But here you come talking about you got this opportunity to go to Seattle. When she told me, the first thing I said was, Washington? Is there another Seattle between here and there? And sure enough, it was Seattle, Washington.
Yes.
Which was just way too far for me, people. Way too far. Too far.
Yes. But I also had some trepidation. Even though I did put in my application, I had some trepidation. Is that too far to take my family? Is that too far? Even though the children are grown, is that too much distance between their dad and them? There were a lot of considerations, and whether it's articulated or not, from Mark's perspective, I spent a lot of time praying about this. I put in my application, or let me even rewind from there. The first hurdle came. I put in intent to apply. I returned the email and said, sure, let me do this. I'm flattered that you thought of me. And then it came back that the position was closed. And then, okay, that's God just saying, nope, don't worry about it. Then I get a call and said, it's back open for 48 hours over a weekend. If you get your app in, you can apply.
Now, mind you, I don't ever want to root against my wife.
Never.
Never. I'm her.
And I don't root against my husband.
I'm her biggest fan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm her biggest supporter. I'm also your biggest critic in a positive way. But I'm saying to myself, yes, we ain't got to go to, excuse my language, we ain't got to go to Seattle. We do not have to go to Seattle. Yes.
Oh, and I sincerely was fine with it. One of the prayers that I prayed, and hopefully this is helpful to someone, that if the door closes, Bev, just walk away clean. It's going to be fine. You're already employed. Where you are, things are going well. Had a new and exciting superintendent coming in to work for Dr. Keisha Campbell. Love you. And she was doing wonderful things there. It was going to be a great opportunity to work for her. I was prepared to walk away clean. If my husband did not want to go, again, if my husband did not want to go, I was prepared to walk away clean.
And I had to pray about that too. Do I say, no, baby, let's just stay here and continue on the path that we're going? Or do I have faith in God's plan and faith in my wife and say, okay, we're going to step out on this ledge and go in faith, not knowing anybody in Seattle, not knowing one thing about the West Coast. I've never been this far west of the Mississippi in my life.
I have visited Seattle, and I will say, all right, here's another piece, that when I was here before, and it was probably between 10 to 15 years ago, we are currently in our 50s. So I have visited maybe in my early 30s, late 20s, and I knew I wanted to come back, but I was thinking it would be a visit. I wasn't thinking we're going to live in Seattle.
And I think that has something to do with the previous part one of this series on space.
Mm-hmm.
How do you incorporate leaving your space and forging a new space together?
Yeah.
And that was one of the things in part one when we talked about when you had to move to Chicago, and we had to make space for your personal things, and we had to make space for my life and your life together. We never really had to make new space on our own.
We didn't have to. One person knew the area. So if Mark was coming to Indianapolis, and we discussed that, and that was a no, I would know Indianapolis. I've been in Indiana previous to this my entire life. And if I was coming to Chicago, Mark had that on lock. He
Right.
had been Chicago born and bred.
King of the block. I'll tell you all about me being the king of the block later.
I'll tell you about Canyon Arrow also, the legend of. Yes, but one of us had each other's back. It wasn't going to be a total start. Someone had some roots there, but we didn't know anyone here in Seattle at the time. And we were also, again, when I visited Seattle, I was in my 30s, maybe a little earlier. Now I'm 51.
Right, we weren't New Jacks, and I think that makes the transition even harder. If we were young, if we were 35,
Mm-hmm.
if we were 40,
Mm-hmm.
we no problem.
Mm-hmm.
But the sun is beginning to set a little bit, and we were like, man,
It's not that dim.
well, no, I didn't say
Okay.
I didn't say it was that dim, but it was just different.
Our gray hairs are longer. Yes.
Like Beverly said, I know Chicago.
Mhm.
I know it like the back of my hand. I'm deep in the street. I know where to go, where not to go, what to do, what not to do. Chicago is my home.
Yes.
I'm cool.
Mm-hmm. And so also to note that this will have been my fourth city in the past decade. So Bloomington, Indiana, Indianapolis, Indiana, Chicago, and then Seattle. That's a lot of change in a short amount of time. Was I ready to make that kind of leap? Was I ready to put that kind of space in our relationship?
Mm-hmm.
How is this going to work? Remember, it's not just the physical space, it's the emotional space. Could we do that? Are you giving yourself enough space?
And I think when we talk about space and the commuting from Indianapolis to Chicago, that's a 3 hour drive. That's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way we could commute from Seattle to Chicago.
No.
So that meant me giving up my
Your career.
my career at City College.
Mm-hmm. And do you put that kind of pressure on your spouse? All of that weighs heavily on you while going through the interview process. Now, Seattle is a highly sought after area to work in, so I did not pretend that I was going to be the only candidate there, that I would win out over hundreds of people. So there were multiple rounds. I had a phone interview.
Which she knocked out the park and told me, and I was like, ugh.
But one of the things that Mark also requires of me, and I also require of myself, is to give my best. If I'm defeated, if I lose, then okay, I can accept that. But if I don't try, then I cannot reconcile that, and neither can he. So I'm giving my best, and I go through first round, and we make it through. And I'm just saying, let's just trust the process.
And then here
Trust
comes
it.
round two.
Is an online interview, and some of my colleagues who may be watching this, they know who they are, that were on the interview panel. Had a good hour or so with them, maybe 45 minutes.
She knocks it out the park. I go, ugh.
And then here we go, final stage. I don't feel like I can give a good interview, and they gave me the opportunity just to do that on the phone. They asked me for an in-person. Now it's starting to get real.
And I went, ugh. Anytime they ask you to fly out, you know that you're one of the top people you're one of the top finalists for the job.
Yes.
So when Beverly told me, well, they want me to fly out to Seattle, I said to myself, let me go down to U-Haul and get some boxes and start figuring out how we gonna make this move to Seattle.
So, final interview. I also am having some nervousness because in my heart, I want to be able to sit down with my leader at work and say, hey, this is the opportunity before me, but I'm also really savvy and to know, unless there's something to tell, let's go on and do this interview. I closed work one night and I got on a red eye and I flew to Seattle, and I'm not even going to say where I stayed, but came in on that red eye, did the interview the next morning. I was nervous. I never told my husband this, but I was shaking the next morning, but I was praying. I got my suit on. I don't know.
And that's not like you. If anybody knows Beverly or you ever get the opportunity to meet my wife, she does not get nervous. I call her Steady B because she is solid as a rock. She keeps me composed and at ease. So when you say that you were nervous, that's a big deal.
Well, Seattle, not that where I was, is not a big deal. Seattle, you are a big deal. This is a global player in all things. People have come here, millions in the tech industry here, and to think that I could come and be an assistant, what ultimately became an assistant superintendent in one of the largest, if not the largest, school district in the state is pretty doggone amazing. So it was intimidating, but I said affirmations. I said every scripture that I knew. I talked to myself about fear. I prayed in the name of Jesus. All of those things that I knew, everything that I had been taught, everything that I had been read, all I wanted to do is give a good interview. And if I did that, I could, again, reconcile myself if I was not the choice. Mark, one of my favorite quotes is from Kobe,
Mm-hmm.
and he talked about in this quote that he works hard as if he had no talent. That's me. I work hard because it's just not my talent that gets me through. Since I was a little girl, it's the hard work ethic that wins the day over and above everything that I have been gifted.
Now, long story short, you get the job.
Mm-hmm.
They want you there in a week and a half.
It wasn't quite that quick, but it was still quick. In less than 3 weeks, in less than a month, I had to close out life in Chicago and be in Seattle ready to
Now,
practice
while you continue,
during COVID.
on our journey of packing and going to Seattle, I'm gonna get
Mhm.
my excerpt and read it. So
Yes.
keep going, baby.
So let's just say that Mark and I had discussions
There were
during
arguments.
this time.
They were arguments.
They were discussions. And I'm a peace person. I don't like loud. I don't like any of those things. While I'm trying to get my thoughts together, I need that peace. And things just were not peaceful. This is going to be a major, major change. And each time I said, I can say no. I will say no. If the salary's not right, if the move package is not right, I will say no. And I'm going to give a big shout out to a former superintendent of mine, Dr. David Moyer, who I speak to on a reasonably regular basis, who said, Bev, he said, I don't know what your situation is, but you have to understand that what you're getting ready to do or what's offered to you, there are very few people in the country who get the opportunity to do this. If you turn this down, I don't know what you'll go back to. But if you can see your way for a month, if you can get through the next 30 days, I guarantee you your life will be different.
And we had to pack up and get you here. Beverly, you came before I did. I didn't come until maybe, about a month later?
You made the initial trip out with me to move because we had shipped our car.
We had to ship a car, ship some clothes in the car.
My Goldie. We decided to leave
everything
pretty much where it was and start over here.
Now, Chicago is still our home. So we came up here and I had to find a place for us to stay virtually sight unseen over the phone.
We were staying in the Staybridge
Hotel for about a week and a half.
Yeah.
Before our apartment was ready. Thank God we found a great place not too far from the job.
Mm-hmm.
And we have some photos of our journey when we first got up here to Seattle. But not only did we have to find new space in a new environment, one of the things, and we didn't talk about this first part of space, is that you had to find your voice. So I'm going to read an excerpt of Space, The Final Frontier, and Beverly finding her voice.
Yes.
So here we go. Bev, in her quest to display her prowess as the force to be reckoned with, had no problem developing a vocabulary that was unique to me and that was both respectful and respected. I call this dialect Bevisms.
Oh.
Although Bevisms are tailor-made for my ears only, husbands, wives, boyfriends, and girlfriends have been speaking this type of language for centuries. There is no surprise if some of Bev's favorite isms are similar and that you have heard them also. Here are a few of Bev's best.
Yeah.
Okay. Number one, Bev always tells me, hold on, player. What does that mean, Bev?
That means pump your brakes. Yes, slow down. Let's revisit where we are. Something has gone off the rails. Yes.
Okay. Number two, is there a problem with you?
You're saying something that is not your norm, so I want to check in to see if you have fallen, bumped your head, if there is something medical, Do we need to check a blood sugar? Anything? Yes.
Okay. Number 3, sir.
Point of emphasis, sir. It is like a period or an exclamation point. Sir.
But you know what? I call you ma'am sometimes too.
I also
But
say
I think it's a term of endearment, a term of respect. You know, it also lets me know if she calls me sir that there's something I really need to take heed to that she's about to tell me.
yes, there's something formal that is getting ready to come. Yes.
Okay. Number 4. Ugh.
The bottom has fallen out. I am just disgusted and beyond my patience. And I'm turning around and I'm walking away.
That grunting sound is usually followed by an eye roll. She deploys this when she had just given up hope of trying to make sense of some of the things that I do. Or sometimes she'll do it in church when somebody does something that's totally...
If anyone does anything that is just way beyond the pale of good grace, class, ethic, like, ugh.
Right. Now, these are some of the Bevisms that made their way up to Seattle. And, well, let's finish talking about, our move.
The move here,
Okay, so...
cars here.
Cars here, some clothes are here. We found a place, get her settled. I got to go back home because I'm still teaching. So I got to finish up the semester I got to finish up the semester. So I got to go back, still work, away from my wife. I'm still coming up here probably once a month, stay for a few days, go back. COVID hits.
COVID is still hitting.
Right.
Yes.
So COVID hits, City Colleges goes from in person
to online.
to online.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can come to Seattle permanently
mm-hmm.
without any fear of
reprisal, loss of employment, nothing. Yep.
So God had a way of just putting things in motion, and we get here, and it's been beautiful ever since.
It has been beautiful, but it still means that I need to constantly make sure that I'm making space for my husband, because I get an opportunity on a daily basis to interact with people and start forging new paths, networking, and there's some exciting things that happen, and not that they're not for Marq, but I always have to make sure that I'm leaving space for you in our relationship, that I'm not getting out too far ahead, that I'm not recognizing that you're still the man in our relationship. He is still king of the block in my heart. So I always want to make sure that whatever we're taking on, that we can do it together. It was a risk. Some may call it faith. But if I didn't have my husband's support, I wouldn't be able to make this swing. And I don't know the next steps that God is going to take us. It is Seattle. We're dedicated here. We love our church family.
And you know what?
Mm-hmm.
Not to change gears, but we got a lot of hate for making this move.
We got hate?
Yeah, we got hate.
Say more.
We had people that, well, why are you moving there? Or I wouldn't do that if I were you. Or that's too far. Or, you're leaving your home. And, what about your job? So we got a little bit of hate making that move.
Doubt. Also, our pastor back at home, Dr. Derek P. Garth, Pastor Garth and First Lady Latrina Garth, they were big supporters. This is an opportunity. Not everybody's doing it. Yes, you may be in your 50s, but still, if all of the things or the lights are green, go forward. So it taught me about dreaming at a certain age.
But you know what else? It taught me that everybody doesn't appreciate your space. Your space, our space is our space.
Our lane. Yeah.
We don't need to make it fit for anybody else but us. And that's the beauty of it. It hasn't always been easy. The terrain in Seattle is kind of hard to navigate, and it rains a lot too. So just it's hilly and
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah, and learning the people.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle is a place of a big heart, but
Mm-hmm.
it is also a small town, so it is often hard to get into certain spaces. She's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle is amazing.
There's nothing like waking up in the morning and we have a view of downtown and we have a view of Mount Rainier, which is actually an active volcano. So if it ever erupts, people.
Had a direct view.
So if it ever erupts, people, pray for us. But
Yes.
there's nothing like seeing
Mm-hmm.
a mountain outside of your window.
Letting you know that God is good. The earth that He has placed us in charge of is beautiful.
And the fullness thereof.
Absolutely. Like I said, nothing like driving and seeing Mount Rainier in the distance, nothing like seeing the lakes. I have almost driven off the road just looking at the landscape. It is an amazing place to be. And I do think it's where God has us for this period in time in our lives. So, everybody, that's why Seattle.
Right. Well,
We come to an end.
that takes care of space. I got a chance to read my excerpt.
You did.
It didn't flow like I wanted to, really, but because we got off talking about the move to Seattle.
I
But
think you're fine.
okay,
I think so.
okay. All right.
Oh, I appreciate you, babe.
I appreciate you too.
There's nothing like talking through where you've been, and hopefully this has been helpful to you and helpful to us as we continue to discuss God's plan for our lives. Continue to take a look at the bottom of the screen for ordering information. Finally, I Do Again is there at redmondprojects.com, along with Revelations of a Real Man or Woman. And until next time, it's not going to be his way.
It's not going to be her way.
But it will be
The Redmond way.
Take care, everybody.
Peace and blessings.